Crash Course – Building Crash Games.
An incredibly talented panel beside of me, and today we're going to discuss an incredibly interesting topic, which is crash games. So I'd like to commence this panel by asking, first of all, the panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll go on to covering the most important questions that I imagine you might have around crash games themselves. So I'll hand over to you, Miranda, first.
Hello, Miranda here, Vice President Commercials at SmartSoft Gaming, covering most important markets in the company, Latin America, Asia, Europe, and North America. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Igor Samardziski, CEO of Wicked Games. We are launching a line of crash games and slots opening in Asia and Latin America as well. Nice to meet you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So Miranda, I'll start with you again. Would you be able to tell the audience, first of all, what are crash games?
So to easily answer that, people always ask, are they RNG games or are they skill-based games? So to answering with the technical thing, crash games are RNG games where thousands of the players play at the same time, the same round, where you need to use, let's say, your skill to place your bet and cash out when there is a right time. So this is the concept, like the communal, life-feeling social game, if I say so. Like easy description.
Igor, do you have anything to add to that? Yeah, that's a pretty fair description of crash games. I would just say that it's well-designed bridge between interactivity, what we used to try to do with slots, create interactive slots, and it moves the requirement for the player to kind of bet against themselves. So it changes the player psychology. So if you're playing a slot, you're just looking for an outcome. It's a very passive experience. I win or I lose. If I'm playing a crash game, I have to choose and fight against my own nature when I want to cash out. So it's a player playing against themselves rather than against the house. And it makes a core difference about how we approach player psychology when we build those games.
Yeah, and you touch on a really nice point there, because from my experience of crash games is the fact that you see that multiplier on the screen. So for those of you who are not familiar with a crash game, you've got this continuously increasing multiplier. And if you cash out, let's say a 30x multiplier, then your bet multiplied by 30. But the situation is it can crash at any time. You can lose all of your money. So on that topic, and I'd like to come back to you, Igor, what do you think makes these games so highly engaging?
Well, I think that's it. You're playing against yourself. It's not passive, it's an active experience. If I compare it to table games, blackjack is interactive, hit or stand. Roulette is more passive. You have some interactivity how you gamble, but it's passive, right? Slots are extremely passive. Whereas crash, and we call them crash games because of our original Crash Aviator, right? But ultimately, any game that requires you to challenge yourself when you want to cash out falls into that category, and that's what makes them engaging.
Miranda, from your experience, what have you seen has been really appealing to players about crash games?
So what I have noticed and what our partners are telling us with the behavior of the crash games are that there is first of all, I'm gonna repeat that there is social community over there, because you have a social functionality, which is a chat, which you don't have in a slot or the table games. So you can interact with other players, which are basically your competitors, let's say, share the experience, sometimes bad words, sometimes wishing each other luck. This is also a really important thing because it attracts Gen Z, let's say, and they want to be in a chat where they can share the experiences with each other. And then you have a feeling that you can decide whether you can cash out or not, which is basically the truth, but it's random game. And there is always like, you are in a tension mode because you never know when this will gonna crash out or not, because this is RNG game again. And I think these kind of feelings combines the demand from the players to the game. So yeah, I think that's it.
Now, you covered the chat functionality. How important do you think that chat functionality is to, let's say, operators in the audience who may be looking at implementing crash games? Do you think a chat is compulsory for that experience, for the full crash game experience?
As the crash games mostly, let's say our crash games are multiplayer, it's really important to have chat functionality because it's what makes the crash games in general. But for the operators choosing the crash games, or from the game developers developing the crash games, they need to have a function where they will be able to turn it off or turn on, because there are some markets that chat functionality is not that necessary or does not fit culture. So you need to have like both options.
Thank you. And Igor, what functionality or what features do you think are critical to making a successful crash game?
We mentioned chat as part of interactivity, but ultimately, if we went a little bit technical, crash games can be RNG to a player, so individual player experience, or RNG to multiple players. And when we have a game that, for example, has a round every 30 seconds, the volumes an operator can generate are much lower. So it's necessary to have multitude of players per round in order to match the volumes of a slot game. So what do you do in those 30 seconds or 45 seconds in between rounds? That's where the interactivity of the chat room comes in. And it's a very good point you mentioned about Gen Z attraction and influencer attraction, because it is natured toward playing against yourself. It does attract a lot of influencers playing Chicken Crosses the Road, whether it's the playing game or any sort of multi-stage game where they are kind of, will they bet again or not? Will they lose everything or win so much? So it has that interactive moment where the chat can also interact with, bet behind, interact with the streamer. Yeah?
Understood, understood. And do we believe that crash games are attracting a new type of audience? Or do we believe they are, in fact, re-engaging an existing audience that was already there but now has something fresh to now come back to? Miranda, I'll start with you.
I would say the answer is both, because we use those games, let's say we call it crash games, the mini games, quick games, like instant games. There are a lot of names, yeah? And we use those games to for the acquisition, because it's easy to understand. You can attract the new players. You can use like even the influencers to attract them. It's so easy. But also for the retention, because sometimes the players are bored with the long interactive games. So you can make the retention as well with those games, because they are really gamified. Comes most of the cases, especially in our games, comes with the in-game promo tools. So you can give them more to stay and enjoy even more.
Igor, what do you think? Acquisition, retention, or both?
It's a really good question. Yeah. I think it did attract a whole new age of... Our demographic changed, first and foremost. Early 2000s, the money makers are now probably, that were in the 40s, are now in their 60s, right? Mm-hmm. So the demographic that currently makes most money economically grew up on PlayStation, grew up on engagement, and the new demographic that is coming into the working industry grew up on mobile phones, Facebook, and attention span shrinks, right? So there is a need for a new class of game which captures a shorter attention span audience. So I would say it did attract a whole new demographic into the industry, but I also agree that it pivoted an existing demographic to something that is different to what they have been playing for 2 decades. You know, it created a whole new vertical. It is both.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people talk about like the TikTokification of everything in general, right? This fact of just getting quick rewards, everything needs to be fast. People are not looking to delay gratification anymore. I think Crash games really tap into that. Now, what markets are you seeing the most rapid growth in Crash games? So what markets are really growing for you or showing really strong demand for these types of games?
Emerging markets like, in general, Africa, Latin America, and now Asia, because I think where the markets have like high penetration of the mobile and improved internet access. That's the important cases, and I think there is like the culture behind it, yeah? Those markets, they are also seek for the entertainment. For example, if we take a look into the Brazilian market, they always had that in the streets, also in the Africa, so it continues to the online where the mobiles are fast and they love to use mobiles.
Yes, yes. And so on that, Igor, do you think speed is absolutely critical here, like for success?
Depends on the game.
Yeah.
So yes, speed is critical. I mean, attention span is critical.
Yeah,
But if we add a social element to it, if we do add a chat element to it, if we do bet behind, Live Spins did it really well, Beyond Play did it really well. Speed is not the primary driving force. Interactivity is.
Yes.
Right? In which case, the whole experience is slower, more interactive, with larger amounts of players interacting per round. It's a really interesting vertical. It does hit multiple demographics and multiple needs at the same time. And as for emerging markets, I agree. It's a device-driven emergence, primarily, which is fair to say for most of our industry now. I think 98% of all interactions are now mobile. Desktop shrunk to about 2% in general across all verticals. But importantly, it is this rise of influencer TikTokification of the player, which created a wave of your roulette and your stakes and your influencer-driven brands. I mean, we call them crypto casinos, but really they're more than that.
Yeah.
I will add one thing. Besides the markets and the market characteristics that we listed, there is a thing of the sports that I think combines both markets, Latin America and Africa. So there is a huge passion for the football, for example. And if we take a look into the details of our Crash games or Crash games in general, coming from the multiplier functionality, which is already like something that they know for those markets. So there is a really good cross-sell to the sports as well. So that might be the answer about these markets as well.
Absolutely. And what do you think operators should look for when selecting Crash games?
I think at the end of the day, it's all about the technical stability, and they need to choose company that already has reputation, either doing in a slots or either doing the Crash games, because we have a lot of new companies in the Crash game direction. For sure, we need to give them a try and try those. But I think if you are starting from the scratch page for the Crash games, you need to choose reputable one, and you need to have flexibility. You don't need bureaucracy when it comes to the Crash games. So you need to be able to propose by the game providers to have a gamification even more suited for you, especially for the individual operator, and to have a branded options, because more branded it is and more have a feeling for the brand itself. For example, any online casino, colors, or the name on it on the Crash game, more feelings and more attachment the player says. So I think those combinations when you are deciding on the Crash games are most important and most highlighted.
Igor, what do you think?
I'm actually reading the Q&A questions, so there's some really good questions from the audience as well. Honestly, I think from an operator perspective, crash games are easier and cheaper to make, first of all. They're more UX-driven rather than deep art-driven. Slots are now becoming, more and more immersive in terms of graphics, whereas crash games do not need to be. So it allows operators to create a series of their own exclusive games. It diversifies operator brands from each other, for one. As for a long time, we've all fed the same slot game providers, and as many slot game providers kept being added, we're all sharing the same content. It allows for unique exclusivity. Secondly, you could theme a crash game based around any mechanic. Like if you're playing high-low, simple high-low, right? And you do chicken crosses the road 9 times, which is, I think, a very popular roulette game, right? It is a sequential 9 or 8-line high-low. That's all it is. It is incredibly addictive because each time that you want to cross another line, you have to challenge yourself. So it allows unique branding or unique thematic experiences that belong to an operator, and it allows very simple mechanics to be explored in any team you want. So it's really how exciting and fun it can be.
Yeah, I'd just like to expand on one area that you covered there about like it being thematic. Do we think the choice of avatar is especially important here? Now, I see the use of planes being very common, very popular. Do we feel we could apply different avatars and see the same success?
Yeah. Like you know what is exciting about a plane? Whether it's a plane or a rocket or whichever, it's really, if you boil it down, it is a time before an exit. So you're playing with yourself to see how patient or how greedy do you want to be. It's a time before an exit. You're seeing more and more avatars being introduced. I just mentioned Chicken Crosses the Road, and you have Trons, you have High-Lows. So I think we will get, I don't think we're there yet, but I think we'll get to a place where a choice of thematic, just like in slots we had Wild West or Egyptian teams working far better than other teams, that wave is about to hit the crash game.
Sounds like something very exciting is brewing on your side. Yeah. All right then. What I'd like to do is then take some of the questions from the audience. So let's look at the first one. So how do you keep crash games exciting without overwhelming or confusing new players? Miranda, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the crash games itself are not confusing at all, because the main thing for the crash games and why they are popular is that they are so easy to understand. And also about the overwhelming thing, there is no overwhelming because it's super fast. If you get over the crash games, you can quickly finish. Like, you just need 1 minute. And if you are overwhelmed, you can finish it. There is no long journey. It's like a short interaction. So I think crash games naturally continues to be not overwhelming and not be confusing at all. Like, easily understandable. That's the label I will add to the crash games.
I very much agree with that. I mean, you could answer the first and the third question together.
Yeah.
And intuitiveness, as Miranda said, easily understandable. A game that is intuitive enough, catchy enough, speed to outcome. Those things simply, TikTokification of the attention span. It allows you to have multiple cycles of engaging with yourself. That will separate a successful crash game from a non-successful one, in my opinion. And then thematics.
All right. And in this final minute, I know we've discussed a little bit about the regional preferences and the particular markets that are really growing for crash games. But I'd just like to finish with this last question, and that's all around the future outlook on crash games. Where do you think crash games are going?
I think the crash games are going where everyone will have it. Like, the big game providers, aggregators, operators, and it will be like independent, separated category, which was not real and which was not happening 1 or 2 years ago. And I think it's going where we'll have even more choices, even like multi-choices, and it will be even more refined. So it's going, it will not distinct, because I know that some people think that this is like only like temporary, but I think it's permanently, because it's really good cross-sale feature or the tool that you can have in the online casino.
Yeah, I don't think it's temporary at all.
Yeah.
If you look at the growth of slots, it's exponential. Now there's over 100 a week. Crash games are at their infancy. So we'll see thematic expansions, we'll see mechanical expansions. I think we'll end up seeing layered complexities of the mechanic. That will be interesting to see if it will have a counter-intuitive effect. Because one of the attractive elements of Crash games is how simplistic they are in their nature. And as people try to reinvent themselves and they move away from simply thematical outlook, they might end up layered mechanics, and we're getting close to slots in that case. But it's definitely a vertical to stay and grow, both in count and in versatility.
Yeah, I'm sure that we will soon start to blend traditional casino elements into the Crash games, which even doubles the outcome. Like we are going to use like a slots mechanics into the Crash games, table game mechanics, so it will touch the traditional side of the iGaming as well.
Thank you very much, both. We are out of time. I'd just like to commend my panel for some very excellent responses. And I don't know about you, but I definitely feel like the future of Crash games is looking extremely positive. But yes, I'd just like to give a thank you to our panel. I've been Alec Gehlot, Solution Engineer at Optimove, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Applause for these guys. And thank you, Igor. You did a fantastic job of answering 2 questions with 1 answer. Thank you very much for that as well.